29 judges. Troy went before the Georgia Supreme Court 3 times. That was 7 judges, the same 7 judges. That's 21. When Troy went to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal twice, it was the same judges. It was 3 judges. That's 6. That's 26 judges right there, 27. And then you had 2 federal judges. That's your 29 judges. So they're making it seem like he had new judges, new hearings. You had the same judges. And then when you look at the judges that ruled against Troy, all of the judges that ruled against Troy were white male except for 1. And that black male that ruled against Troy is actually the lawyer, I think, for the governor, and was appointed by one of the white males that's on the bench. So they vote in blocks and, you know, just kind of like this Democrat-Republican thing. But this is about truth. This is not about your political party. This is not about a technicality. This is about somebody's life.
What is the most compelling evidence to you of the witnesses? What 7 of the 9 non-police witnesses have recanted?
Yes.
Of those 7, who do you think it's most important for people to understand?
I think Dorothy Farrell is one, because she was the one that said, I saw Troy do this with a smirky smile. And she came back and totally recanted, because there was no way that she could have saw what she saw from where she was. She was in a hotel room when she heard the shots. And then she said she ran outside, came downstairs, and then, you know, she saw 3 guys running away. But then she's...
How far?
She was across 4 lanes of highway, through a row of trees, looking into a dark parking lot that was probably maybe a quarter of a mile across the street. But she says that she could see a smirky smile on a dark-complected person's face in a dark parking lot. So she was the one who put the gun in Troy's hand and said that Troy did it. And then you had Antone Williams, who signed a statement against Troy, who said he couldn't even read and write the statement. You know, and witness after witness.
Who was the person who talked about right and left hand?
Steve Sanders was a Air Force guy, and they were in the Burger King parking lot. And they were at the drive-thru. Was this the parking lot? Yes, they were at the drive-thru. They actually thought that Larry Young was begging them for money when he was begging for help because he's being pistol whipped. And he said that all he could see was that the person fired, because he thought people were just playing in the parking lot until they heard the shots. But all he could see was that the person fired from their left hand. He couldn't tell you what they looked like. He couldn't tell you the clothes they had on, anything. And he said that night he couldn't tell you. 2 weeks later, he couldn't identify the shooter. 2 months later, he couldn't identify the shooter. And then 2 years later, he came to trial, and he said, that's the guy right there. That's the guy that did it.
Is Troy left-handed?
No, Troy is right-handed.
Is Sylvester left-handed?
We are not sure, but the courts have said that what we should have done is gotten a doctor to sign an affidavit saying Troy is left-handed, I mean right-handed, but then we would have to prove that Coles is left-handed, but then that may not be enough information. But, you know, one thing that was really important in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Rosemary Barquette, who said that this is not only unconscionable and unconstitutional what they're doing to Troy, she said, if you take out all the witness statements, what evidence do you have against Troy Davis? And all they had was Steve Sanders, who said that that night he couldn't identify the shooter and that all he knew was that the shooter was left-handed. And that's what they're saying is enough to kill Troy Davis. So it's amazing that Sylvester Coles was never made to produce his .38 caliber weapon. You know, it's amazing that...
You mean he had it at home and they never took it?
No, he said that he got into the argument with Larry Young and he threw his gun away that night. And he didn't even tell the police until maybe a week later that he even had a .38 caliber weapon. They had to find out that he had a .38 caliber weapon. And then when they asked where it was, he said he threw it away and he doesn't know where it is. So the weapon was never produced. There was no ballistics linking Troy to the crime, no shell casings, nothing. Everything was negative. But yet still they went to court and said they were linking shell casings that they don't even know who turned them in to Troy. But the ballistics report were completely negative. So, you know, this case is all about not only the 7 out of 9 eyewitnesses, but you had 9 additional eyewitnesses that came forward, 3 who actually say they saw the murder, and 6 who says Sylvester Coles bragged to them about committing the murder. And they've never been heard in a court of law, only on affidavit.
So what is the case that is currently before the Supreme Court that will rule when, well, perhaps Sonia Sotomayor will be the new Supreme Court justice?
Yes. Well, we have an original writ before the U.S. Supreme Court that's a habeas writ, asking for a hearing so that people can hear, so that justices and judges could actually hear this evidence. And they have not, the U.S. Supreme Court has not granted an original writ in about 85 years. But this is an extraordinary circumstance where somebody's life is at stake, and that this evidence should be heard, because you have people on both sides of the fence: Bob Barr, William Sessions, you know, Jimmy Carter, you have Sam Millsap, who's a prosecutor. You have people who support the death penalty and people who are against the death penalty on the same side in a case, saying this is an abomination. You cannot kill people like this, because if you kill Troy Davis, you're going to expose the system and you're going to shut it down. You know, and that's what this case is about.